It's time. Time to get inspired and empowered. To realize it's never too late to create your next amazing story. Get ready to break through, transform, and start living the life of your dreams. So, are you ready? Truly ready to begin your journey to create your next amazing story in life and love? Great. Let's jump in with your host, Life and Love Transformational Coach, Suzanne Oshima.
Welcome everybody to the It's Never Too Late show. I'm Suzanne Oshima and I'm a Life and Love Transformational Coach at Your Next Amazing Story. I am so excited because we have a very special guest today, Dr. V, and she's the author of Heal Breast Cancer Naturally. And today she's going to share with you how it's never too late to get healthy even when you have breast cancer. So welcome, Dr. V. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Suzanne. I'm looking forward to sharing this information with your audience. It's really, really exciting.
Yeah, it's not only exciting, it's so important, and we really want to empower women that, they can still get healthy even when they've been diagnosed with breast cancer. And I know you have your own story, so I would love for you to share with the ladies your own story.
Yeah, actually, I have two stories. I went through healing breast cancer twice, so that was quite interesting for me. So first time was in 2004, where I was in the shower, found that lump in my left breast that, obviously changed the course of my life personally and professionally. Because I was Dr. V. I'd been in practice for about 25 years and, I was bringing wellness to the world. I was very passionate about helping people. And I couldn't understand how someone like me could develop breast cancer. I mean, I ate organic before organic was in style. I breastfed my kids. I exercised. I was on top of the world. And so as I went down that rabbit hole of trying to figure out the pieces of the puzzle, I realized that it was pretty frustrating. It was confusing, it was overwhelming. And if I was feeling that way with, my professional experience, then how much more so would the average person be? So that led me to create the signature process that we have called the 7 Essential System. It's a step-by-step guide that makes it easy, makes the journey easy, because there's so much confusion and, where do I start? What do I do first? And then fast forward about 9 years, same situation, found another lump, same spot, left breast. But, and people ask me, well, if you were, teaching something that supposedly worked to help, heal breast cancer, then how come you got breast cancer again? That's a great question. One that I had to ask myself, and that led me down the rabbit hole of looking at my lifestyle. And really, I was putting others before myself. I forgot about the self-nurturing, the self-care. I was coaching women literally all over the world from sun up to sundown, and it was just too much. I just did not draw proper boundaries. I had some new dental issues that came up. So it was the perfect storm for cancer to develop again. So the good news is, since 2018, everything is clear, vibrantly healthy, and I've learned so much more, and I'm even more passionate about teaching women what I do.
Oh, I love that, because not only did you have one comeback, you had a second comeback, and you're so resilient and you're so beautiful. And I know you have so much to share with the ladies on how they can lead this healthy lifestyle like you have, right?
Yes, yes. So let's just maybe dive through just very superficially each of the 7 essentials so they understand the whole process. So essential number 1 is let food be your medicine. And, I know your audience is very much in tune with, proper eating, and I won't get into the ins and outs, but there's no specific anti-cancer diet. It depends on your metabolic functions, depends on your genes. There's just so many factors involved, but, clean organic food is numero uno. Number 2 is to reduce your toxic exposure. We know we live in a toxic world, right? But there's many things that we can do to reduce the toxic exposure by limiting the products we bring into our home, doing things to detox our body on a regular basis. Number 3 is balancing your energy.
Before you go to number 3, I want to ask you something about detoxing, because I personally believe in detoxing, But I've actually asked medical doctors about detoxing, and every time a medical doctor will tell me, no, you don't need to do that. And I know for myself, when I've done detoxes, I feel 100 times better, and I try to do them at least once or twice a year. So can you give the ladies some feedback on detoxing, whether it's good and how to do it? And because I know some people do juice cleanses. Some people do it different ways, but what do you recommend?
There's so many ways, and as far as the response from the medical doctors who poo-poo it, obviously they haven't tested, blood work and hair analysis and that sort of thing with the functional medicine lab tests that we have available to us. We know people are very toxic. They've got pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals, all of that is in our body. So you can do anything from coffee enemas to juice fast to intermittent fasting to fasting period, just a water fast for 3 to 5 days, always supervised, obviously with a health coach or a doctor. There's, specific nutrients that you can take to help support the liver, homeopathic drainage, there's all kinds of ways, heating up your body so that you sweat, infrared sauna, biomat, all those things are beneficial.
Okay, great. So what's number 3, I think?
Number 3, yes, is balance our energy. We are 1/1000th physical matter. The rest is all energy, just tiny, tiny part of physical matter. So how do we balance that energy? Well, make sure you're under chiropractic care, acupuncture, proper exercise. Balancing your hormones for women is so important. That's such an important part of number 3. Because women have been told that their hormones are responsible for causing cancer. But if that were the case, then every 20-year-old on the planet would be walking around with cancer, right? So it's not our hormones, it's the chemical estrogens that we're exposed to that drive that estrogen. And if you don't have a healthy gut, guess what? You can't metabolize and secrete those unhealthy estrogens. Number 4 is the big one. It's the emotions. Healing your emotional wounds. And it's very difficult, I find, for women because we're so used to taking care of everybody else, right? And putting ourselves last on the list. So this really pushes people into their discomfort zone. They have to learn to do things differently. They have to learn to manage their stress, take time to meditate, to calm down your heart, calm down your mind. You cannot heal your body if you feel like you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, right? If you're in that fight or flight, ain't no healing going to happen then. You've got to really dial it down. Number 5 is biological dentistry. Now, that has to do with what we have in our teeth. If we have metal fillings, like silver fillings, those are 50% mercury, and mercury is very toxic. Root canals. Root canals are like dead organs in your body. They're full of unhealthy bacteria that affect your immune system. And our teeth are connected to our meridian system and to our organs. So if you have an amalgam or root canal on the number 14, number 15 up here on the top left or top right or on the bottom, that can affect those breast meridians. So, make sure you work with a biological dentist who understands that connection and can help you clean up your mouth.
So let me ask you a question about that, because this is to me one of the things that I find really fascinating, because I grew up in the 70s when they used a lot of metal fillings, right? Mm-hmm. And so I a couple years ago had the metal fillings taken out. But what I've also heard, and I would love for you to share on this, what your thoughts are, is that it's not just about removing them, it's about removing them in the right way, because you can also inhale the mercury and it could still get into your bloodstream. So it's not just removing it, you have to get the right dentist to remove it. Is that correct?
Absolutely, that is so correct. I was fortunate, it was in the early 1990s, and I had a dentist who had trained under Dr. Hal Huggins, who was the, first biological dentist who, was ostracized by the ADA, sent to Mexico. He had to leave the country and went to Mexico to practice. But yes, you have to make sure that they're certified biological dentists, and there's all kinds of certifications and organizations. If you don't use the proper techniques and you don't remove them in the proper method, then yes, it can be very toxic to your body.
And can you speak a little bit about the root canals? Are you talking about what they fill the root canal with once the root is removed, or are you talking about just a root canal in general?
Both. What they use to fill it with, and then because a lot of times they use epoxies and resins that are very estrogenic. They stimulate estrogen production. Things that contain BPA and that sort of thing. Sometimes they use metals. But think about this. If you had a dead gallbladder or a dead appendix in your body, and no matter how aseptic or how clean you tried to make it, you'd always be fighting an infection, right? And same thing with the root canal. It's a live organ that is now dead, and there's always a pocket of very toxic bacteria at the tip, even if you don't have symptoms. There's a great Netflix show called The Root Cause, and it's like an hour and a half of dentists and endodontists from all over the world who discuss this very thing and the relationship to various diseases, including cancer.
So does that mean, this is scaring me a little because I had my first root canal 2 years ago. But does that mean instead of having a root canal, you should have the tooth completely removed? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not a dentist.
Okay.
But if it were me and I had a root canal, I would have it pulled. And I would not have it replaced with a metal implant or a zirconium implant. You're drilling a foreign substance into the bone, and you're just adding more fuel to the fire, another site of potential infection. Now there's little flippers, removable teeth that you can put in and out that are non-toxic, and they act very well and they don't cause any problem.
Interesting. Okay, so what's your next point?
So you might want to find out what meridians your root canal is sitting on, FYI.
Okay, I will. Yeah, I'm going to go Google that after our interview.
All right. Number 6 is probably the question that we get asked the most when women first contact us is, what supplements do I take? What herbs, what remedies can I take that will, weaken the cancer, boost my immune system? And we could spend, a whole day on teaching this. But in a nutshell, there's basic nutrients that will help you prevent. So things like, vitamin D levels, making sure your vitamin D levels are between 80 and 100 mg per ml. Making sure you have iodine, trace minerals like zinc, magnesium, selenium. Those are just foundational, very, very important. And then when you get into the more targeted, what I call targeted essentials, to target the cancer cells, then you look at things like broccoli sprouts, because it has sulforaphane that helps to cause cancer cell death. Bloodroot, agaricus mushrooms, turkey tail mushrooms, poly-MVA, solicinium, resveratrol. There's just all kinds of, of substances there that have proven, if you just go to pubmed.org and you put in, breast cancer, and you put in a substance, whether it's selenium or vitamin C, and you'll see hundreds and hundreds of studies pop up. So definitely evidence-based medicine is important.
Okay. What's your next tip?
Number 7 is to adopt very early detection. So you want to make sure that you stay on top of your health, because we work with a lot of women that have been through the cancer journey. They've used traditional medicine or a combination of both, natural and traditional, and they want to make sure they never go there again. So there's specific blood tests that are outside the realm of traditional medicine that are good for you to check. One of them would be IVGene, IVYGENE, IVGeneLabs.com. And they look at free circulating cancer DNA in the blood. And so it kind of gives you a baseline as to, are you actively creating lots of cancer cells or are you not? So that's a good baseline. Of course, looking at traditional markers, looking at inflammatory markers. There's another lab in Greece called the RGCC test. They measure circulating tumor cells in the blood. So there's just so many things that you can do to stay on top of your health. And then one of the projects that I'm very excited about is something called My Breast Friend. So this is a silicone breast model that has been used for over 30 years to train medical doctors. Basically, it was used by the Mammacare Foundation to train doctors on how to find lumps in women's breasts. And now this is available to women. We're taking it to market so women can learn to use this model to find lumps in their own breast, because most women don't know how to do a breast self-exam, right? You read a pamphlet or you put the little thing in the shower, but you have to learn how to feel what a lump feels like, and then you can compare it to your own breast tissue. So My Breast Friend to me is a real game changer as far as very early detection. And you can find all this information and more. Heal Breast Cancer Naturally. This is the second edition of the book. Just came out yesterday, as a matter of fact. The Audible should be out in about another week. But I go deeply into each of the 7 essentials. This is a #1 bestseller on Amazon, 10 categories and 5 countries. So very proud of that.
Oh, well, I love that. Well, can we go back to the breast exam? Because I think you're right. A lot of women don't know how to do that and how important that is. So can you talk a little bit more about how often we should be doing that and where we should be doing it? Because I've heard in the shower, some people say to lay down on a bed. So I would just love for you to share with the ladies when and how often.
Yeah, no, that's great. So you have to have that experiential feeling. You have to connect the pads of your fingers with your brain and what normal and what abnormal feels like. You have to learn how to follow the grid pattern that we teach about. Most women don't realize that they have to go as high as the collarbone, into the armpit, down the side, under the breast, on the chest bone. And you have to go all the way down to the chest wall, because tumors can hide that deep. So it's light, medium, and deep pressure. Now, how often should you do them? I recommend every 2 weeks. Wow. It takes, once you learn the system, and you have to do them laying down. Standing up is not going to give you the same effects. So you wake up first thing in the morning or before you go to bed. Once you learn that pattern and you do it properly, it takes less than 5 minutes on each breast. Women's breast tissue changes all the time, and you have to know to recognize your normal geography versus what's not normal. There's actually something called interval cancer. It's a cancer that develops between the year 1 and year 2 of a clinical exam or a mammogram, right? They go for a mammogram, everything's clear, the doctor feels their breast, nothing is there. 6 months later, they're full of disease. There's a term called interval cancers. And I've known women that's happened, as much as 3 months, it's changed that rapidly. So every 2 weeks is not asking a lot. It's your body, get empowered, don't rely on external sources all the time. Learn to feel what your body feels like.
Yeah, that's so important. And I love that you shared that even just going for the mammogram doesn't mean, okay, I'm good, I don't need to do the breast exams, because I think that's a false sense of security, right? Oh, my mammogram was clear 6 months ago, right?
Exactly. There's no one technology that is standalone. So, I did not mention, so if you get a mammogram, then get an ultrasound. If you do a thermogram, get an ultrasound. Thermography reads the infrared heat to show you if there's inflammation in the breast tissue. If you do ultrasounds, then, get an MRI or one of the others, and always do a breast self-exam.
Okay, so it's funny that you brought up the ultrasound, because I was just going to ask you about that. You must have been a mind reader. So for me, I'll share something personal about me, is I have dense breast. And so when I've gotten mammograms, that's all they say is, oh, you're clear, but you just have dense breast. And what I've learned about dense breast is that you should also get an ultrasound, because an ultrasound can pick up things. But what also I've heard about insurance, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky, is you cannot just go have an ultrasound. You have to get a doctor to order that, and you have every right, even though if your mammogram comes back clear, you can request that you get an ultrasound, which is what I just did recently.
Good, good, good. No, that's so important because, as you know, dense breasts. It's like trying to find a polar bear in a snowstorm. You know, when they're trying to find tumors because everything looks white. And so, definitely not a standalone diagnostic tool. Make sure you get an ultrasound, and especially, I would also do thermography because it's going to give you another window. Even
Now,
ultrasounds can be difficult to read with dense breasts.
so now you had mentioned thermography, which I don't even know what that is. So can you share what
Oh,
that is?
okay.
Yeah, and I'm
Sure.
sure a lot of women are going, well, what does that mean?
Okay, sure. So thermography is a technology. It's a little camera that reads the infrared heat coming off of your body, and then the software translates it into an image. So you can look on the image and see if there's redness in the breast, if there's blood flow, what we call angiogenesis, feeding a tumor, if there's estrogen dominance, if there's, everything is inflamed. So you cannot diagnose cancer by looking at a thermogram, just like you can't diagnose cancer by looking at a mammogram, but it's going to alert you at a much earlier stage. So it can detect things when things are just, a few hundred cells compared to, by the time it's the size of a ping pong ball, which is when most women find their lump. Much earlier detection. And there's no pain, there's no compression, there's no radiation. It's easy breezy.
So now, is that hard to get approved by insurance to get that done? If let's just say your mammogram came back clear, your ultrasound came back clear, but now I heard Dr. V say I should get thermography done. How do we, get that approved and done?
Well, 50% of insurances are now covering thermography. And, when I get asked that question, I'd say basically it's an investment in your health. It's not something you're going to do every month. You get it done once. 3 months later, you go back to see if anything's changed. After that, it's yearly, just like, a mammogram. So, and they don't run, typically they run about $175 to $200 for breast. That's like, a nice dinner out with a bunch of friends, right?
Right. Yeah, and then we're talking about your health, right?
Your health and your life, yeah.
And then you had also mentioned MRIs. Now, would that come after a thermography or either or?
Well, an MRI will be used if there's something suspicious and the doctors aren't sure, or if they've already done a biopsy and they know for sure that there's cancer. Sometimes they'll order an MRI with contrast to see how much dis-ease there is in the breast before they make their conclusion as far as, treatment plan.
Okay. All right. So what else can you share with the ladies as far as how they can get healthy even when they've been diagnosed with breast cancer?
Well, I think the number one thing is to really recognize that even if you have cancer or you've had cancer, this is an opportunity for you to take stock of your life and how you've been living your life. I love this quote from Dr. Carl Simonton. He wrote the book Getting Well Again, and he says, cancer is a message of love. It's a message that your body's telling you to do things that bring you joy and less things that bring you pain. Because, cancer is not just something you get. It's something that develops over a period of time. And we know now that 85% of cancers are environmental and lifestyle. We know that. And so you have a huge measure of opportunity here to be able to change your lifestyle, to adopt better ways, to learn to find joy and happiness again in your life, and to, live your life in a totally different way. It's not just getting rid of the lump or the bump. It's about transforming your life. It's really an amazing opportunity. And I've seen time and time again, women are happier and healthier after they've gone through the journey. And I can attest to that.
Right. Yeah, that's so important. I mean, we really have to look at how we're living our lives, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, because there's that day when we all lay in bed and we know we're facing our last breath, right? We don't want to have any regrets. And so now's the time while you're up and well and thriving, to really take advantage of life.
Yeah, exactly. So what else can you share with the ladies?
Well, I'd really like to encourage them to look at their emotional state of health, basically. We live in such a busy world. Our attention is always being grabbed with all the social media and the electronics. And we don't spend enough time getting quiet. Just dialing everything back, turning off the electronics, the TV, the cell phone, and just sitting, getting quiet, centering yourself, asking questions that you want answers to, or, take time to get outside in nature and let that sunshine hit your eyeballs and your body. Move your body. We live such sedentary lives because of computers. We're chained to our desks half the day. Get outside and move your body, oxygenate. All those things are going to help balance your hormones and improve your health, boost your immune system, and just mentally help you feel better.
Yeah, that's so important. I think a lot of people don't even think about that. And I love that you said to put away the cell phones, because I think sometimes our cell phones and technology, while they connect us, it can also disconnect us from nature and just living our lives in the simple way and enjoying life, right?
Absolutely. It disconnects us from family. I mean, we're more connected through social media, but we're disconnected from each other. I mean, you go to a restaurant and you see parents and kids on cell phones. Where's the interaction? It's all about communication, and we're so addicted to our electronics. It's frightening.
It is. I completely agree with you. Okay, and do you have any last thoughts?
I would say look forward to something. There's always something that can pull you forward. Get clear about your bigger purpose. What is it that you want to accomplish in your life? And I don't mean accomplish in terms of business or work necessarily. If that's your thing, that's great. Mm-hmm. But what kind of legacy do you want to leave for your family or your friends? Just really think about the number of days or years that you may have left on this planet. What can you give to others that will also bring you joy and bring you satisfaction for living the life that you're living?
Yeah, because I think that's so important, because I think that women should never get to the end of their life and say, oh, I wish I did this or that. We should always say, oh my God, I lived the most amazing life and I feel at peace, right?
Mm-hmm. There's something called the 5 regrets. There was an oncology nurse. She worked with hospice patients for like 20 years. And she wrote this blog, and I don't remember all of the 5 regrets, but she says this, they always showed up when people were on their deathbeds. They always said, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I would have connected with my family and friends more. I wish I would have allowed myself to be happier. I wish I would have taken more time to smell the roses, all those types of things. And so, we don't want to be on our deathbed and have those regrets. We want to, close our eyes and be happy with what we contributed to the world. That makes me think of Louise Hay. You're talking about it's never too late, right? She was 65 years old when she started the Hay House. And she thrived until I think she was 92 when she passed away. But she really left a mark, and she was so passionate, even though she was in her 60s and 70s and 80s and then early 90s. And she went to sleep at peace, knowing that she had gifted and changed so many lives in this world.
Oh, I love that you shared that. It's interesting because I interviewed somebody else and they talked about Louise Hay, and we couldn't remember the age that she started Hay House. And then it's funny because you just brought that up today. Yeah, she was an amazing woman, and we should all aspire to be just like her and truly live our lives like there's no tomorrow, and just go after whatever you want, no matter your age, right?
Exactly. It's never too late.
It isn't. It isn't. Well, Dr. V, I would love for you to share with the ladies how they can find you, because you have a wealth of information, and I know the ladies are dying to know how they can find you.
Thank you, Suzanne. You can find me at breastcancerconqueror.com. And of course, we're all over on social media as well.
Awesome. Ladies, so go to Dr. V's site and you can find all her amazing information that she shared today and also her book. And I think that her book is so empowering and inspiring for women who are diagnosed with breast cancer. So it's important to take your power back. So thanks everybody for joining us on It's Never Too Late show. The show is available both in video format and audio format, which are both available on yournextamazingstory.com. And if you would like to get our free ebook, How to Create Your Next Amazing Love Story in 3 Simple Steps, you can click right here on the video, or you can go to yournextamazingstory.com.
Love today's episode of the It's Never Too Late show? Then head on over to yournextamazingstory.com to continue the conversation, get access to show notes, and get more amazing content.